logged on.
Hi everyone, I'm Utkarsh, the founder of Network Capital, here with Sanjiv, the founder of Rekhta, who's written a fantastic new book called Love, Longing, and Loss. You can check it out on rekhta.org. Sanjiv is somebody who I admire because he's built a portfolio of careers. In fact, I asked him to write a blurb for my book, which will be out in June, so you should check it out. Today, we're going to discuss about Sanjiv's career and his book and his love for Urdu. So tell us a bit about yourself, Sanjiv. Were you always interested in business and poetry as a child, as a college student?
Well, I'm from a business family, so business was kind of a given, so to say. And I went through all the hoops that one has to go through in life: school, college, engineering, then work experience, then setting up my own company. As far as work is concerned, I have been all over the place: Odisha, Delhi, Thailand, and finally, before settling down in Delhi. And as far as poetry is concerned, poetry was there in the background. It was never
Hmm.
really a prime focus early on. But poetry, and especially Urdu poetry, has always kind of enamored me and always been close to my heart. My father was very fond of listening to ghazals, of reading poetry. So that was there. विरासत में एक तरह से मिला है हमें. But one since one had to check all the boxes of work and business, etc. उस तरफ तवज्जो कभी नहीं दी हमने. Is it all right if I speak in English Hindi
Please, sir, you
combination?
can आप मिला के बोलिए बिल्कुल.
जी. तो ये विरासत में एक तरह से हमें मिली इन टर्म्स ऑफ शौक. लेकिन वो शौक को तब्दील करके हमने एक अपना लाइफ बना लिया एक तरह से. I made it my life. And that was about 10 years ago when I decided that all the boxes have been checked as far as work and ज़रूरतें जो थी ज़िंदगी की अपनी अपने बच्चों की वो पूरी हो गई थी हमारी. तो फिर हमने तय किया कि समथिंग फॉर द सोल आई नीड टू डू. That's
Hmm.
when I turned to Urdu in a very, very serious fashion. I learned the script at the age of 55 and started reading original content. And then I felt that there are probably millions of people like me who are attracted to Urdu but have no access because of script, difficulties of script, or difficulties of getting content which is reliable or complete. The internet is full of everything. I mean, but very little of it was reliable or complete. So we started a website back in 2013 to just give select content of the big poets so that people can come closer and access and understand what's all about. But then that became so popular and so much in demand that then we just there was no looking back. Then it grew from 50 poets to 500 poets to today 5,000 plus poets. Uh, we have over 50,000 ghazals and nazms. It expanded to various other different forms as well. We will talk more about that as we go forward. But the kind of popularity and acceptability of our offering of Rekhta is so high that it is, I think, personally for me, it's more gratifying than whatever business success that I've had in the past.
Yeah. Riksha is very much a movement. Whichever city you go in, there's always a community of poem lovers, and Rekhta has played an instrumental role. In fact, on Network Capital, when I shared that you'll be here with us talking about your career and your book, people were really thrilled, and the community of poets organically started to assemble. So congratulations on making that happen, Sanjeev. Did you
Thank you.
consciously try to build a portfolio of careers? आपने थोड़ा बताया कि you wanted to get stability and some business success to provide for your family and so forth, and then sort of launched your second part of your career. So how much of that was strategic planning? How much of that was happenstance, and how much of it was luck? How much of it was effort? थोड़ा इस पे reflect करिए.
नहीं, it's quite clear, उत्कर्ष, कि स्ट्रेटजी वैटेजी कुछ नहीं थी हमारी. हम तो बस Youth, I had youth on my side when I started. I was part of a family business to start with.
Hmm.
That was happenstance. I was born in a business family, so automatically उससे connect हुए थे. But as in happens in large families, the kind of opportunities you get, the role you play, is very limited. And after a few years, I found that there was no growth, personal growth for me. So I needed to do step out and do something on my own, where, however small it may be, it was kind of something which I would round me up as an individual or as a businessman and industrialist. तो हमने एक कंपनी शुरू की और वो भी happenstance from a background of mining and metallurgy. I stepped into plastics, and that was because of my lack of knowledge or understanding. I mean, happenstance ही हुआ कि एक opportunity सामने आई, and for lack of any better option, I grabbed that opportunity. Went through a grind of what 4 or 5 years where I was wiped out many times over, but
Hmm.
stayed with it. And then things turned, and then we grew and grew. We are still growing. तो एक तो वो लाइन जो है वो हैपनस्टांस से और लक से और परसिवियरेंस टू अ डिग्री. द ओनली क्रेडिट आई कैन गिव माई सेल्फ इज परसिवियरेंस. दैट हार
Hmm.
नहीं मानी कभी. जुटे रहे, लगे रहे, kept going onward, surviving day to day initially, and then gradually building it up. So that was, and that is the biggest piece of my work side. But then उसके बाद हमने अपने career में we tried some other couple of things like hydroelectric plants. वो भी छोटे scale पे शुरू किया, वो भी आहिस्ता आहिस्ता बढ़ा, and now it's a middling kind of size of business. So happenstance and luck, I would
And
give.
grit.
ग्रिट तो हर आदमी में जनरली होता है, मेहनत हर आदमी
Hmm.
करता है, बट जब तक किस्मत साथ ना दे तब तक कुछ होने के इम्कानात कम ही रहते हैं.
जी, थोड़ा बताइए कि जब आप स्ट्रगल कर रहे थे, when you were finding things hard in the early days, did poetry or literature offer solace? Did you turn to it when the going got tough for inspiration, for sort of changing context?
Well, it used to be a kind of release or a relief for me at times, but that is all it was in those days. उससे ज़्यादा कोई बहुत ज़्यादा पोइट्री से हमारे माइंडस्केप को या हमारे वर्क स्पेस को कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ा. But it was certainly in music and poetry both. Music also, and poetry and music are so deeply interlinked, especially the Urdu poetry is so deeply interwoven with music that it was certainly an area of relief, release for me so many times.
Understood. Sanjeev, before I turn to your book, I got to ask your mentors, like who've been people who've guided you along? You mentioned your father, but have you consciously tried to cultivate a tribe of mentors, or they happened along the way? Tell us a bit about them.
Along the way, your father, of course, in terms of poetry and that, he was the inspiration. No question about
Hmm.
that. My uncle, my mother's brother, the late Kamal Murarka, who was a very multifaceted person, he was also always a source of inspiration and guidance, and a sounding board, an advisor, so to say. He played a sizable role in my growing up and my thought processes as I went along. उसके अलावा almost everybody one meets, one's colleagues, one's friends, they've all played a role in forming the person that I am today.
Yeah, it often happens that way. Let's turn to your book now. All right. The cover, I find it fascinating. Muzaffar Ali Saab has designed it. Tell us a bit about it. How did you choose the name of the book, and how did the cover of it come to fore?
Well, the name of the book was fairly kind of uh, obvious because the largest number of shairi, the largest amount of shairi, has been written around love or
Hmm.
various aspects of love. Of
Right.
course, there are other genres like Marsiya or the Qasidas or other genres, but without a question of doubt, the maximum amount of poetry that has been written is about love. longing, and loss. And so that was a fairly natural choice because the book also emerged happenstance. It wasn't very planned.
Hmm.
Over the years, over the last 30, 40 years, I've been reading poetry, and whatever touched me at different points in time, at different stages in life, I used to make a note of it, to collect it, and kept compiling it in diaries, so to say. Uh, then I realized that इतना ज़ख़ीरा हो गया है, मेरे बाद क्या होगा इनका? So these need to be preserved in a collected form so that people could possibly benefit from my collecting and my selection, and to put it together. So then the question of format came up. What format?
Right.
Should I just dump the stuff under different headings, or should I give it a narrative? And that is where the idea of the narrative came, and I wove it into a story form or a journey form, and under different headings, different chapters, and put into shape. जहाँ तक कवर का सवाल है, आई एम अ ग्रेट एडमायर ऑफ मुजफ्फर साहब. आई थिंक इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट पॉलीमैथ हैं बिल्कुल.
Hmm.
In so many different areas, he's such a brilliant creative person, whether it be movies, whether it be music composing, whether it be art, whether it be designing clothes, furniture, whatever. So I always kind of thought that he'd be a good person to kind of give a face to the book. And I approached him and I left it totally to him. I gave him a copy of the draft of the book and I said कि आपको जो ठीक लगे उसका आप कवर हमारे लिए डिज़ाइन कर दीजिए. And there he has mixed so many different elements in this. There is a minstrel, there is a like a the journey of love, there's a road, there is the Dero Haram kind of structure in the middle, the horse of time and the horse of time really, which is on its two hind legs, rearing to go, the birds in the sky. So I think it is a very, very sensitive and a lovely cover that he has designed.
I agree. The art of losing is not hard to master, but it actually is, says Elizabeth Bishop. Do you agree?
Art of losing.
Is not hard to master, but it actually is, or some shape or form, that Elizabeth Bishop says. Tell us about that. Reflect on the art of losing.
I don't know if it's really an art. Most people just do it out of lack of thinking or lack of attention and lack of
Hmm.
sympathy, empathy, lack of respect. So many factors come into losing. So I don't know. I wouldn't really call it the art. I mean, that's a bit of a misnomer in my view. And it's pretty easy to lose if you don't take care. If
Yeah.
you're not careful, if you're not sympathetic or respectful, or so somehow the question doesn't जेल विद मी पर से. एक शेर
Hmm.
है, किसी को अपने अमल का हिसाब क्या देता, किसी को अपने अमल एक्शन का हिसाब क्या देता, सवाल सारे गलत थे जवाब क्या देता. So this particular question really doesn't resonate with me, and but you have to be very very careful as to not lose. जितनी मेहनत लगती
Yeah.
है not lose में, वो
कई बार
वो
आप
बहुत.
लॉस हो ही जाता है जैसा आप कह रहे थे if you're not careful some losses like loss of love or loss of life is beyond your control and sort of grappling with it and making sense of loss can be it's a big part of human existence, right?
I'm limiting myself to loss of those who hold you in affection and whom you hold in affection.
Right.
Loss of life is something which is that's the only sure thing, death and taxes. So loss of life की बात ही नहीं कर रहे हैं हम, अपने आप को महदूद रख रहे हैं हम सिर्फ लॉस ऑफ अफेक्शन.
ठीक है. तो अब बताइए, लव, लॉन्गिंग एंड लॉस, इज इट अ प्रोग्रेशन?
No, it's a journey. It's not necessarily a progression. It's a journey, and आप किसी भी पड़ाव पे आप अपना खेमा डाल सकते हैं.
Hmm.
तो कोई कहीं तक पहुंचता है, कोई कहीं तक पहुंचता है. तो डिपेंडिंग ऑन हाउ फॉर्चुनेट यू आर और हाउ diligent and careful you could be at any stage. The book talks about love, longing, loss because all said and done, the best poetry emerges from a feeling of sadness.
Hmm.
It doesn't. You would not find poetry which really touches you, which is happy poetry.
Hmm.
It is mostly poetry which is sadness, longing, pain, grief, losing, neglect. शायरी सबसे है ना. There are so many in all languages. They said the sweetest songs are those that come from the saddest thought.
Right.
है सबसे मधुर वो गीत जिसे हम दर्द के सुर में गाते हैं. So almost entire corpus of love poetry arises from desire, longing, separation and loss. ये इतना बड़ा पहलू है कि इस पे पूरी ये किताब भी कम पड़ती है इसके लिए. दरअसल देखा
Hmm.
है, मैंने बहुत शेर काटे छाटे हैं इसमें से to try to keep it concise and in a flow. So it's not inevitable, but for poetry it is necessary. अच्छी शायरी करने के लिए चाहे मीर हो, चाहे गालिब हो, चाहे कोई हो, वो जो उनके शेर याद रहते हैं आपको और जो आपको छूते हैं, जो दर्द का रिश्ता है वो बहुत गहरा होता है इंसान का.
Bilkul. And you talk about it in the early parts of your book, where you ask the reader to try and place himself or herself in the words and really try to feel it. And I thought that was such a powerful introduction to sort of internalize the language, internalize the poetry, internalize the emotion. And while doing that, one sort of transcends space and time. But I have to ask, translating such a complex emotion in a language rooted in another time, it seems like a challenge. Tell us about it, and please do read some of your sentences that moved you.
देखिए, it is a fact that you cannot really translate poetry from
Hmm.
language. We can try and do it, but as a good friend of mine kind of gives this example, she says that a translation is like the backside of an embroidery. And it is, however good the embroidery might be, the backside will always kind of give you a clear cut idea that it is the backside. It is not the front face. Similarly, in so I steer very clear from saying that I'm translating the poetry.
Right.
I have specifically used the word transcreation, where what I have done is try and encapsulate the emotion in as close a construct as I can to give the English reader a sense. It's not a verbatim translation. I have taken liberties, quite a few liberties, but I have tried at the same time to be honest to the emotion. And that's why I have requested the reader to immerse himself, herself, and read it aloud and try to contextualize it as to what the poet must be feeling. तो जो शायर की आवाज़ है
Hmm.
उसको हमने उतारने की कोशिश की है. And as far as other language is concerned, Urdu is very, very rich in rhyming and in ability to kind of the syntax and the grammar is so flexible that it is difficult to get that down in English. English neither has the rhyme nor the repetitive the radif जो शायरी में है, which makes it so beautiful. That's not there in English. So I have stayed with couplet wise translation, transcreation, where I've tried to capture the voice and the context. Therefore, you will find somewhat archaic usage of words. in my transcreations, ताकि उस वक्त का जो एहसास है वो कैप्चर हो सके, वो पकड़ में आ सके. तो कोशिश ये रही है. एंड every time I reread my transcreations, I find fault in it. So it's an ongoing process. But it is as a starting point. I think it's a thing that I should have done and I have done, and I'm glad about it.
Yeah. One of the important contributions of the book is that it takes you on a journey and it helps you make up your own mind by giving you a flavor of different emotions. And I must compliment you on doing a really precise job in that. So let's hear that with some of your favorite sentences, couplets from the book.
Precision की जहाँ तक बात है, Utkarsh, it probably comes from my engineering background,
Acha.
and that helps trying to kind of keep things aligned and tight, rather than just flowing randomly. तो वो है. जहाँ तक I will just, there are so many couplets that I can read out, but I will just kind of try and stay with some relevant ones.
Yeah.
The journey starts with the question as to what is love. And before I delve into reading, let me just kind of tell all the listeners that Urdu Shairi and Urdu love poetry has a context. It has a history and a context, and the kind of metaphors that are used over there, the kind of similes that are used, and the kind of allusions that are used in Urdu are not there in the English language, because that helps convey a lot more in two lines. उर्दू
Yeah.
शेर इज टू लाइन्स, दो मिसरे. तो दो मिसरे में इतनी गहरी बात लोग कह जाते हैं. And that is because of the tradition of Urdu poetry, which is built in. There's a platform on which these shares are written. If an allusion is made to Majnu, the poet will just write Majnu and build the share around that. But the entire myth or the entire legend of Majnu and his quest for Layla, his tearing his clothes, his wandering the deserts, वो उसका पस मंजर जो है वो उसके साथ साथ चला आता है. So that rich tradition and context that is there in Urdu is, I have tried to give notes and explain in various places to what it's about. But if familiarity उसके साथ अगर हो तो it helps certainly better understand, better
Ji.
empathize with the poet. तो अलग अलग शोरा ने, different poets have talked about love and looked at it differently, or felt it differently, or verbalized it differently. So the one poet says, जिगर मुरादाबादी, एक लफ्ज मोहब्बत का अदना ये फसाना है. एक लफ्ज मोहब्बत का अदना ये फसाना है. सिमटे तो दिले आशिक, फैले तो जमाना है. I have tried to transcreate it about the word called love. This simple story stands. अदना सा फसाना है. About the word called love, the simple story stands. It shrinks a lover's heart, the world if it expands. तो शेर का मफहूम मैंने कन्वे करने की कोशिश की है. एंड इट इज this kind of, I would think, give the English reader a reasonable idea as to what the poet is saying. एक मीर तकी मीर कहते हैं, इश्क माशूक है, इश्क आशिक है, यानी अपना ही मुब्तला है इश्क. Love is the beloved.
Right.
Love is the paramour. Love is thus enmeshed in its own allure. So अलग अलग शोरा ने इश्क, they call, and they say that it is not in man's power. Love is something which happens. You have to be receptive. गालिब का बड़ा फेमस शेर है, इश्क पर जोर नहीं है ये वो आतिश गालिब, जो लगाए न लगे और बुझाए न बने. One has no power over love. It is that flame to it, which neither can be set alight nor extinguished once lit. सो लव के बारे में डिस्क्राइब किया है. लव, पीपल से हु डिजर्व्स लव, कहते हैं ओनली स्पेशल हार्ट्स कैन डिजर्व लव, कैन रिसीव लव. महमूद देलवे का शेर है, मोहब्बत के लिए कुछ खास दिल मखसूस होते हैं. ये वो नगमा है जो हर एक साज पर गाया नहीं जाता. जस्ट अ फ्यू सिलेक्टेड हार्ट फॉर लव आर ट्रूली meant. Love's not a song that can be sung on every instrument. इस तरह से मैंने कोशिश की है कि लव, इश्क के अलग अलग पहलू जो हैं, लोग उसके बारे में क्या समझते हैं. पीपल कॉल इट अ रिलीजन, पीपल कॉल इट,
Yeah.
आई मीन दे कर्स लव, आई मीन कि इट इज समथिंग. जिगर का शेर है, कूचा इश्क में निकल आया, कूचा इश्क में निकल आया, जिसको खाना खराब होना था. On the path of love he went, who was on destruction bent. तो उसको डिस्ट्रक्टिव भी बोलते हैं, उसको लाइफ गिविंग भी बोलते हैं, उसको बीमारी भी बोलते हैं, उसको वर्शिप भी बोलते हैं. लव इज अ हार्ड टास्क मास्टर. मकतबे इश्क का दस्तूर निराला देखा, उसको छुट्टी न मिली जिसको सबक याद हुआ. इन द स्कूल ऑफ लव a custom strange I see, he that learned the lesson never then was free. आप जकड़ गए इश्क में तो फिर जकड़ गए इश्क में, मतलब आप निकलना उससे दुश्वार है. मोहब्बत में नहीं है फर्क जीने और मरने का. गालिब, मोहब्बत में नहीं है फर्क जीने और मरने का, उसी को देख कर जीते हैं जिस काफिर पे दम निकले. इन लव देर इज नो डिफरेंस बिटवीन लाइफ एंड डेथ. द हेरिटिक फॉर whom I live also takes my breath. सो ये लव एक पूरा चैप्टर, सबसे बड़ा चैप्टर मेरे ख्याल से लव का ही है. देन ही सेज कि लॉट ऑफ पीपल से कि अकल से काम लो, यूज योर ब्रेन्स, डोंट लेट नॉट योर हार्ट डिक्टेट. तो अकबर इलाहाबादी वाज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट ह्यूमरस पोएट्स. ही सेज, इश्क नाजुक मिजाज है बेहद, अक्ल का बोझ उठा नहीं सकता. Love's temperament is such a frail affair that weight of intellect it cannot bear. A lot of poets have advised कि भैया अकल को दूर रखिए आप. इकबाल कहते हैं, इकबाल ने कितना कहा है, I don't know where that particular शेर is, but the शेर मैं पढ़ दूंगा, उसका ट्रांसलेशन कहीं ना कहीं है, ट्रांसलेशन है. अच्छा है दिल के साथ रहे पास बान अक्ल, अक्ल which is the sentry, which is the guard, which is the gatekeeper. अच्छा है दिल के पास रहे पास बान अक्ल, लेकिन कभी कभी उसे तन्हा भी छोड़ दे. The brain let the heart alone, free to do what it must do. Then I will go forward. We talked about the heart, because
Right.
दिल के बगैर इश्क कैसे करेंगे. That is the fertile ground where
मुश्किल
love
सवाल है.
blossoms. तो दिल क्या है? सौदा, another big great poet, सौदा, he writes, आदम का जिस्म, एडम्स बॉडी, आदम का जिस्म जबकि अनासिर से मिल बना, एलिमेंट्स. आदम का जिस्म जबकि अनासिर से मिल बना, कुछ आग बच रही थी, सो आशिक का दिल बना. आशिक का दिल है वो आग है, इट्स फायर. blazing always. Adam's body came to being when elements combined. Some fire remained, so was a lover's heart designed. सो दिल के बारे में भी एक पूरा चैप्टर है जिसमें आप दिल को शायर कोसते भी हैं, उसको कोई कहता है इसको फॉलो करना चाहिए, कोई कहता है बिल्कुल नहीं करना चाहिए, कोई इसको फ्रेजाइल बोलता है, कोई कुछ. सो देयर इज अ होल कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव्स of different poets which have all been strung together in a narrative. And this book is not really meant, Utkarsh, to be read in one go. It's not a novel.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to read it in one go.
A lot of my friends keep it by their bedside और रोज उसमें से 2 या 3 अशार पढ़ते हैं बस. बिकॉज जज्ब करना ज़रूरी है, उसको फील करना ज़रूरी है उसको. एंड यू कैन पिक इट अप एनीवेयर एंड रीड फ्रॉम एनीवेयर डिपेंडिंग ऑन व्हाट योर inclination or present emotional state of being is. Then of course comes the beloved.
Right.
मरकज जो है इश्क का वो तो beloved है. और उर्दू शायरी में एक्चुअली beloved खुदा को भी beloved मानते हैं. सूफी, entire सूफी philosophy talks about God as the beloved. सूफी philosophy में जो पीर और मुर्शिद होता है, खुसरो की सारी शायरी जो है वो निज़ामुद्दीन औलिया के लिए थी और उसको पिया बोलते हैं खुसरो. He considers his Pir Murshid to be the beloved. But this book, I have mentioned somewhere that this is, I've used those shares also, but in the human context. किसी ने बड़ा अच्छा कहा है, हकीकी इश्क की इश्क मजाजी पहली मंजिल है. हकीकी इश्क इज द ट्रू गॉड लव फॉर गॉड. उसकी corporal love, human love is the first step. And he teasingly tells the wise men, चलो सुए खुदा ए जाहिदो कुए बुता होकर. Let us go towards God, O wise men, O priests, O holy men, but by the street of the beloved. That is the first step. जब तक ये नहीं आप पूरा करेंगे वहां नहीं पहुंच सकते आप. So it's a very interesting kind of and I've talked about beloved के चैप्टर में from the first glance where he kind of, the poet sees the beloved from a distance, तब क्या ख्याल आते हैं, जब करीब आता है तो क्या ख्याल आते हैं, फिर पर्दे में होती है beloved तो पर्दे पे कई अशार हैं, फिर पर्दा उठता है, रुख देखता है, उसके लब रुखसार देखता है, उसकी आंखें देखता है, उसके गेसू देखता है. तो उर्दू शायरी में जो माशूक का तसव्वुर है वो हमने कोशिश की है कि उसके अलग अलग पहलू उसे पेश किए जाएं और सामने आए. मीर talks about the lips and the eyes. खिलना कम कम कली ने सीखा है तेरी आंखों की नीम ख्वाबी से. Blooming gently, buds did learn from thy eyes half dreaming turn. मीर उन नीमबाज आंखों की सारी मस्ती शराब की सी है. In those half oped eyes divine, all headiness is as of wine. तो ये जो फिजिकल एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं, गेसू हैं, गेसुओं के लिए मीर लिखते हैं, हम हुए तुम हुए कि मीर हुए, हम हुए तुम हुए कि मीर हुए, उनकी जुल्फों के सब असीर हुए. बी इट मीर और यू और मी, कैप्टिव्स ऑफ हर कर्ल्स आर वी. तो इस तरह से एक पूरा सफर है ये कि माशूक है और फिर वो जाहिर है कि माशूक से अगर मुलाकात हुई है, बात हुई है, नकाब उठा है. आफ्टर दिस स्टेज उर्दू शायरी में है तगाफुल, वेयर माशूक knows, the beloved knows that this guy is interested in me, but she neglects him, acts coy, acts difficult to get. hard to get. So there is a whole chapter, पत्ता पत्ता बूटा बूटा हाल हमारा जाने हैं, जाने न जाने गुल ही न जाने, बाग तो सारा जाने हैं. Only the flowers unaware, rest of the garden knows my state, each leaf and every bud that in the garden grows. गालिब का फेमस शेर है, हमने माना कि तगाफुल न करोगे लेकिन खाक हो जाएंगे हम तुझको खबर होने तक. तो इस तरह के अशार निगलेट पे बहुत सारे हैं. एंड पर्दे पे हैं, वेल, फिर रूबरू पे हैं. सो द जर्नी गोज ऑन एंड देन कम्स द टाइम. एक चैप्टर इंटरेस्टिंग है जो लोगों को लगेगा वो इंटरप्ले का है, कि बातचीत हो जाती है और मुलाकात होती है और he wants to connect with her. So there's a full chapter on that. And then the poet gathers the gumption to ask for a kiss. अब तक तो बातचीत हो रही है, दूर दराज से हो रहा है, कोई लम्स नहीं हुआ, कोई तो बोसे मांगता है, बोसा बोलते हैं किसको. And she refuses, obviously. I mean, she is hard to get. So बोसाए रुखसार पर तकरार रहने दीजिए. झगड़ा गाल के किसका, बोसाए रुखसार पर तकरार रहने दीजिए, लीजिए या दीजिए इनकार रहने दीजिए. From skirmishing about a kiss, you should now abstain. Let me either take or give. From refusing, refrain. And I mean, I think people will enjoy this chapter because there's a lot of mischief in this.
Yeah,
Poet
refusing restraint is
yeah,
quite a
so
way of looking at it. Yeah.
so ये खींचातानी और so this is a kind of fun chapter which non-serious readers also would probably enjoy.
And the serious reader as well. The
Serious
serious
readers,
people can also.
serious readers enjoy always. You have to immerse yourself, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
this book is kind of aimed at the layman more. मुझे serious readers से डर लगता है थोड़ा, because they always will kind of figure out that exact translation नहीं है या ये लफ्ज़ यहाँ से यहाँ होना चाहिए था. But people who are fond of Urdu poetry and don't have access to it, उनके लिए मेरे ख्याल से ये किताब मुस्तफ़ैद साबित होगी. It will be
In a way, you're
advantage.
democratizing access and engagement with emotion. And that is another important contribution of the book by making, such complex emotions accessible in multiple languages. I think, Sanjeev, you've done a phenomenal job of making it happen for readers in India and around the world. I know that you'll be traveling with the book, and we on NC will definitely support you on your mission.
फिर ये सब तो हो गया किस्सा, फिर इंतज़ार का वक्त आया. Now he's waiting for her. And he's not successful. So Ghalib is Ghalib. I mean, Ghalib has a share on any topic, every topic related to love and philosophy. ये न थी हमारी किस्मत की विसाल यार होता, अगर और जीते रहते यही इंतजार होता. That my love be consummated, fate did not ordain. Living longer had I waited, would have been in vain. So ये इंतजार कर रहे हैं. Now he wants to go beyond a kiss. Kiss हो गया, natural progression भी है इसमें. So he wants to meet her more often and he wants a union with her. And so we come to there's a full chapter on union where right from his desire, वस्ल उसका खुदा नसीब करे, जी मेरा चाहता है क्या क्या कुछ. It's a very direct share. Meer Taqi Meer. Rapture with my love may God provide. Such desires in my heart reside. So from the thought of union, rapture with the beloved, वहाँ से शुरू होता है. And he expresses to her, she gets annoyed. And then finally, she kind of agrees to meet him, and how their consummation of their the love happens. And so this is also an interesting chapter on their meeting, consummation, tryst. Then his love sickness comes into play. Possessiveness is there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
poetry in Urdu and possessiveness, and the rival. The rival has a special place in Urdu poetry because that is the kind of counterpoint. She kind of toys with the rival also, teases him, his jealousy, his जिक्र उस परिवश का और फिर बयां अपना बन गया रकीब आखिर था जो राजदां अपना the splendor of her beauty in the manner I narrate. My rival, he's become who was my confidant to date.
Mm.
Then he's people come and sit next to her, and he has to keep moving away from her. जो कोई आवे है नजदीक ही बैठे है तेरे हम कहाँ तक तेरे पहलू से सरकते जावे complaining whoever comes sits by your side how far from you should I now slide so there's a constant kind of tug of war because of the rival's presence and his he tries to kind of inveigle her into giving up the rival and coming to him and he's resigned कि भैया वो तो उनका
Now
नेचर है
it's up
ऐसा
to
कि शी
fate,
विल
up to her. Yeah.
तुम जानो तुमको गैर से जो रस्म रहा हो तुम जानो तुमको गैर से जो रस्म रहा हो मुझको भी पूछते रहो तो क्या गुनाह हो
Hmm.
इट्स अप टू यू इफ विथ माय फोर्स you choose to spend some time but if you ask of me as well would then it be a crime तो वो
Yeah.
सो वो
Noble
राइवल का पूरा
question.
एक एंड देन राइवल आ गया तो इनफिडेलिटी भी आएगी so he assumes her to be disloyal not being faithful to him so on and so forth and she lies about it he says वो झूठ बोल रहा था बड़े सलीके से वो झूठ बोल रहा था बड़े सलीके से मैं एतबार न करता तो और क्या करता so gracefully she did deceive what could I do except believe so it's a journey which kind of goes from step to step हमको उनसे वफा की है उम्मीद जो नहीं जानते वफा क्या है गालिब from her I harbor hopes of constancy who does not even know what's loyalty
Hmm.
उर्दू शायरी में the beloved is also supposed to be cruel a tyrant a tormentor sitamgar jafakar there are so many words bedadgari there are so many words so वफाओं के बदले जफा कर रहे हैं मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ वो क्या कर रहे हैं in exchange for faithfulness she inflicts torment what is this I'm doing and what is her intent then he says that he's become a guinea pig for her सितमगर जब कोई ताज़ा सितम ईजाद करते हैं तो बहरे इम्तिहान पहले हम ही को याद करते हैं when those cruel ones fresh tortures do invent they first sent for me for to experiment इस तरह से पूरा जो तस्वुर है tyranny beloved's tyranny and this tyranny is not physical torture it is emotional mental torture that he undergoes and the beloved's kind of lack of compassion lack of consideration for him for him. So ये पूरा chapter है, and then it goes on to call her a qatil, a killer. Because he feels that he's been
Killer. Okay.
slain. Killer है. And he says कि अगर बख्शे जहे किस्मत न बख्शे तो शिकायत क्या, सरे तस्लीम खम है जो मिजाज यार में आए. Good fortune if she spares me, if not then why complain. With my headboard I'll submit to what my love may deign. So the entire chapter on the beloved being a tyrant, a killer, who kind of seeks to annihilate him in love. हम आह भी करते हैं तो हो जाते हैं बदनाम. And he realizes he cannot complain.
Right.
हम आह भी करते हैं तो हो जाते हैं बदनाम, वो कत्ल भी करते हैं तो चर्चा नहीं होता. Even if I sigh aloud, my reputation's flayed. Even if murder commits, no mentions ever made. So, and how she's indifferent at his being slain. And he wants justice. But he realizes, था इरादा तेरी फरियाद करें हाकिम से, था इरादा तेरी फरियाद करें हाकिम से, वो भी है शौक तेरा चाहने वाला निकला. Even when she complained, the ruler is also, about you to the ruler I wanted to complain. Oh mischief monger, he too turned out to be your swain. Complain भी नहीं कर पाता है बेचारा. Then he gets alienated, and then he kind of connection breaks off. तर्क ताल्लुक का पूरा चैप्टर है. Separation होता है, pain, grief है. Then he still cannot stay away. He keeps going to the beloved's lane. बार बार जाता है, लगातार जाता है. बार बार उसके दर पे जाता हूँ, हालत अब इस्तराब की सी है. मीर. Repeatedly to her address I go, lo such is my distress. And finally इस जर्नी में वो उसी के गली में दम तोड़ देता है. उसके पहले देयर इज अ चैप्टर वेयर वो दीवाना हो जाता है, दश्त नवर्दी डेजर्ट वॉन्डरिंग करता है, कॉलर फाड़ लेता है. So that's also quite an interesting chapter. He gets stoned by people in his frenzy. जब से तूने मुझे दीवाना बना रखा है, संग हर शख्स में हाथों ने उठा रखा है. Right from the time you have me crazed, in each one's hand a stone is raised. And the book ends finally with dying. And then there too he suffers the ignominy of her not showing up in time, or if she comes, she kind of stays away from the ceremonies and all that. And then आखिरी शेर किताब में है, जफ़र का शेर बड़ा फेमस है. कितना है बदनसीब जफ़र दफन के लिए, 2 गज जमीन भी न मिली कुए यार. How ill-fated is Zafar that he could not obtain 2 yards even to be buried in his lover's lane. So I have run through the book in various chapters just to give you a flavor, your listeners, a flavor of the kind of journey that I have encapsulated, described in this book.
It's fascinating, I must say.
And this is just I probably read out 20 shares out of 1250. 1250 अशार इसमें हैं. और मेरी कोशिश ये रही है कि हर शेर ऐसा हो जिस पे या तो आह निकले दिल से या वाह निकले दिमाग से कि
Ah, yeah, wow.
ये बात हाँ या वाह निकले.
Highly recommend listeners to check it out on rekhta.org. The book is available. Love, Longing, Loss. Just a couple of questions before we let you go, Sanjeev. We live at a time of ad hoc jobs, ad hoc bonds. Do you see love as prolonged desire? You've alluded to that in your previous answers, that love is perhaps most cherished when it's lost, or most celebrated when it's lost. But tell us more about prolonged desire and love.
देखिए ज़माना बदल गया है.
Bilkul.
So therefore you would see from my selection that most of the poets whose shares are included here are from the 18th and 19th centuries. 20th 21st centuries में बहुत महदूद हो गया है वो that whole concept of love. आजकल तो WhatsApp और I mean there's no concept of as Javed Sahab says that uh, with today's age and day and age, Romeo will not be seen below the balustrade singing to Juliet. अब तो फोन पे ही सारे
Yeah.
एसएमएस भेज देते हैं और ट्विटर पे हो जाता है या हो जाता है. सो that thing is changed. But today also very good poetry is being written but of a different context. उसमें पेन पेन की जरूरत है. दर्द को दिल में जगह दे शायर इल्म से शायरी नहीं होती. So pain is there but different pain. Less of the महबूबा का दर्द and more of the social
Hmm.
aspects and livelihood and various other pain points that exist today.
Yeah. So you would say that the whole notion of Viraha Viyog has been challenged by the communication revolution. Do you think it has
Distances,
affected the
both time and
intensity
distance
as
have
well?
both time and distance have shrunk.
Yeah.
So intensity और इंटेंसिटी के इजहार के लिए और उसके लिए वक्त नहीं है.
Hmm.
So that certainly has compressed and I'm sure I mean मजरू का बड़ा बढ़िया शेर है. आज that reflects more of today's. तू है हर जाई इज बेवफा. तू है हर जाई तो अपना भी यही तौर सही. तू नहीं और सही और नहीं और सही. सो अब जो है वो एक ही माशूक के पीछे और वो लॉन्गिंग और वो डेप्थ ऑफ इमोशन और वो टाइम नहीं लोगों के पास कि बहुत ज़्यादा वियोग करें. वो आगे बढ़ जाते हैं. सो दैट इज़ मोर रिफ्लेक्टिव ऑफ टुडेज.
We'll
एक
wait
शेर
to
था
find
इसी.
out what today's Ghalibs have to say. Maybe history will tell us later.
एक शेर इसी किताब में एक शेर है. तमाम उम्र तेरा इंतज़ार हमने किया. इस इंतज़ार में किस किस से प्यार हमने किया. सो वो भी एक पहलू उसमें आता है. सो
Aata to hai. Well, Sanjeev, this has been a delight. Thank you very much for spending your Thursday afternoon. I know you're traveling, and it means a lot that you came on our platform. And to the first of many more conversations and partnerships to come, Sanjeev. And congratulations once again for writing a phenomenal book. I'm very sure that anyone listening to this or watching this will go on and check out the book, and more importantly, engage with the ideas you advance. This will soon be available on all our podcasts, on the website, and you can find it on Rekhta or Network Capital both. Congratulations
it's available
again, Sanjeev.
it's available on rekhtabooks.com. Org is our website
RekhtaBooks.com.
for so much more, but rekhtabooks.com is specifically for books.
Yeah.
And it is a pleasure
We'll
being with
add the
you,
link
Utkarsh, and
where we publish.
ठीक. So it's a pleasure being with you, and thank you for having me on board for this.
Of
Inshallah, there'll
course.
be many more.
Too many more, Sanjeev. Just before we is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, or any parting words from your side?
कुछ next time के लिए भी छोड़ दीजिए.
ठीक है? That's the essence of poetry, right?
जी, ये सिलसिला जारी रहना चाहिए, ना खत्म होने
बिल्कुल,
वाला सिलसिला हो।
ना खत्म होने वाला सिलसिला। बिल्कुल संजीव जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच एंड थैंक यू फॉर डूइंग दिस इम्पोर्टेंट पीस ऑफ वर्क। वी रियली अप्रिशिएट दैट। सी यू।
थैंक थैंक यू, सी यू।